Hi, I'm Rose and you're watching The Sovereign Soul. I haven't done a YouTube video for quite some time. I find videos a lot harder and more distracting to do than voice podcasts. But I feel that there is something that I have seen that is really important to talk about. And I'm even going to be eating my words a little bit. I don't like to do collective readings. I don't like to tune into the energies of the planet and try and give predictions on things that have got to do with awakening and consciousness, etc., etc. I believe that everybody needs to walk their path, whatever their path is, and they need to own it and, go along on that path. But there is something that is undeniable at the moment, and I have to say that there is a collective global energy that is being rained down upon us at the moment, and it's exciting because that energy is actually connecting all the dots and creating a most phenomenal blueprint to allow human beings to start accessing their divine consciousness. Mind-blowing. It's given the whole picture to put the science and the biology and the spiritual and the energetics together, the mental, the emotional. It brings all the five bodies together. I like to say five bodies, and maybe somebody else might like to talk about more, but I like to talk about the five bodies. We have a mental body, emotional, spiritual, energetic, and physical. And this beautiful consciousness rain down upon us is bringing all of that shit together in the most powerful way for those who are ready, willing, wanting to catch the wave. Life on Earth is hard, but also it's not exactly the consciousness of the planet based on the leadership of the planet is not going forward. Humanity is not going forward. If anything, human beings are more enslaved now than they have ever been before. Human freedom is at a desperate level for salvation, actually. The sad thing is, we can't save somebody else. Everybody has to save themselves. But in this new information, it can give people the capacity to reconnect to their ability to help and save themselves. And this is so mind-blowing and so exciting and so wonderful. And it's something that I want to talk about because I've had information coming past my path where I can see people talking about certain aspects of it. And I want to just pull it all together and speak about all of the aspects, all of the bodies, and the impact that this can have on human beings. And I say can have because the chances of humanity's consciousness, the divine consciousness, returning to us as human beings, I think is a very low percentage based on the way things are going. And the potential for human beings to reconnect to that divine consciousness is there. Of course it is. All possibilities exist. But whether or not enough people will catch the timelines and the waves fast enough for them to be able to be their own salvation, to move from a completely and entirely enslaved human race to this divine self-led consciousness, I think could take millennia. That's how I've always seen it. But the more people that get it, the more people that see it, the more the ripple can ripple out, basically, and we can have the capacity to reach more people and free more souls, ultimately. Not to convert souls, but to give people back their own freedom to choose for their own soul. And so the beautiful connection that's coming now is through the nervous system. It's about having people understand their nervous system, but understand their emotions, and then understand how to reconnect to their soul. And not only just the soul, but actually to the divine consciousness of their soul. I've been doing the work I do and been on my own intergalactic journey for at least 10 years now. So it's been about a decade. And one of the things that I have seen very clearly from the beginning, I say seen or been shown or just intuitively understood, however you want to call it, one of those things is that the DNA holds a place in the awakening of human beings and our reclaiming of I want to call it divine consciousness, higher consciousness. The DNA is part of the puzzle, basically. But I've never fully understood what that meant. Initially, I used to see the soul as something that like lived in my heart as a light. And now I see it as something completely different. I see the soul as the exact the of consciousness, of pure source experiencing itself individually, but at the same time the capacity to experience itself as everything. So in other words, each individual soul is exactly that, the putting together the drop inside the ocean. The souls are that. But where does the soul reside within our body and our human experience? The soul, or the blueprint rather, so the energy of it, how it plays out in this human body, plays out through our DNA. The DNA holds the entire blueprint of our soul, but it also holds the entire blueprint of the alpha and the omega, the all consciousness. I don't know if you've ever heard the explanation that a black hole, like in outer space, that the surface of the black hole contains the entirety of every ounce of information of what goes on inside the black hole. So in other words, if in that black hole there are a gazillion different universes and a gazillion different beings and a gazillion different possibilities, the outside, just the outside, holds that entire imprint, basically the blueprint of everything going on inside there. All the information is black, just on the surface. And of course, that black hole can go on infinitely. Now, it's no different to us when we look at our soul and the potential that our soul has of not only connecting with divinity and living out that high potential, but also all of the information that the universe could possibly have sits inside that those DNA strands. Now, where it gets really interesting is that scientists say that only 1% of our DNA is active. 1%. I mean, I was trying to give a little bit more credit and say 3%, but when you go online, you'll see it's anything between 1 and 2% that is actually sending coded connected messages. The rest they had called it junk DNA, because it's not really coding anything going anywhere, or gray DNA. It's like gray matter. It's like they can't find a purpose or a reason for this DNA and why it functions the way it functions, or how it's even meant to be functioning. That's like 98 to 99% of our DNA. Now, our DNA, if it is the blueprint of our soul and of all consciousness, and see it as the surface of the black hole, is fast asleep. It is totally disconnected. We are not living our full potential as a human being. The full potential of a human being is a race of beings which are beautiful and innocent and spiritual beyond comprehension. We are not born to original sin. This was a concept that was made up to make people feel bad about themselves. And this was done in order to control people, to enslave people. And the world is pretty fucking enslaved. Let's be honest. So, somewhere along the line, that DNA has been switched off. Let's just say that. It's become dormant. It's become sleepy. But it still exists within us, because when you check it out, there's this whole section of our DNA that isn't fully operational. It's not running. So if you can understand that your body is made up of cells, and these cells have got anything, depending on your size that you are as a human being individual. They say that the general human being is anywhere between 70 to 78 trillion cells that make up this body. Inside every single one of those cells is a nucleus, and that nucleus is what holds your DNA. And when you take that DNA and you unravel it, you can uncoil and uncoil and uncoil and uncoil the DNA, you are going to land up with 2 meters per nucleus of DNA. That's pretty long. If you take 2 meters and you times that by 70 trillion, you're going to get 140 trillion, I think, if that's double, I think. And if you're going to take that 140 trillion and then you're going to divide it by 1,000, I think you might, because I metric South Africa, so I work in kilometers, and I think you would land up with, say, like, I don't know, I want to say 140 billion kilometers or something. I might be wrong, but I think it's that. So I think it reduces it from trillions to billions if you divide it by 1,000, but you do the maths. But essentially, if you do that math, you will realize that you can fit around this universe that we know of. You can wrap around it, and maybe you could even wrap around it a couple of times. And that's just your DNA. I don't know how many atoms make up your DNA, but one cell alone makes 1 trillion atoms, they reckon. So I don't know how much of that of your DNA. So you are infinite. That is what you are when you start dissecting this matter. So now this is where it gets really fucking amazing. So that's the biology of us as a human being, but it brings in that spiritual with the soul and the connection of that soul with it being dormant in consciousness. Because when we're born, we're not all born the same. We have a perhaps a life mission, or just personality traits, or certain things that we live out that nobody can really explain. You can be raised in a family of 3, 5, 10 children, and not everyone comes out the same way, even though they themselves have had very similar experiences, same parents, lived in the same places, gone to the same schools, but somehow it doesn't define who that human being is. So a human being, and the way Earth is run at the moment, is very much about oppression and suppression and inequality. Human beings are enslaved. It's the way it is. And I believe that our souls have been trapped in a reincarnation cycle. Like, we are recycled souls, which keeps the system very strong, spiritually as well as on this planet. Because if you look back through the history of Earth, you will note that the way leadership has worked is the same now as what it was then. You've got the people at the bottom who have to serve the people at the top, and the people at the top cannot have the life they have unless the people at the bottom are enslaved, in fear, and reliant and dependent on them. So that is the way it works, and that's the way it's been working for millennia. And it's no different now. It's exactly the same way. And that's why there is such massive inequality on Earth. But at the core of every single human being, we all have the same potential, the same ability to connect to the infinite divine consciousness of our being. So I like that Hindu namaste, the divine in me sees the divine in you, because that is the truth. We're all divine. There is no one that is better or less than somebody else. It's only the system and the way it works that makes that happen. So there's this hierarchy. And within that hierarchy, we have been born into different circumstances and situations, depending on who, where, what you are. So you could be born in a different race, a different culture, a different religion, a different country, a different gender, you name it. There are all these different ways that we get to experience consciousness individually. So source consciousness, experience itself individually. But on Earth, that consciousness has been hijacked. it's been shut down. So we're only having these very limited human experiences that are only serving the hierarchy at the top. It's not really serving the people at the bottom. The people at the bottom have been enslaved, they've been manipulated, and they've had their freedom revoked from them. And I don't even think the people at the top understand the kind of slavery, not only that they have, that they are contributing to, but also that they themselves are enslaved in, because they're enslaved in that in a spiritual level as well. Whatever is going on earth is completely and entirely mirrored and duplicated in the spiritual. So our nervous system, this is the vibration of the human body. So atoms vibrate. If you know anything about, a little bit about quantum physics, I don't know a lot, I'm not a fucking physicist, but I like to explore different little things, just get a deeper understanding of myself and how I function and how we function in the world. So a little bit of physics and understanding the idea of string theory is that basically if you zoom into something to the smallest minuscule way. So if you zoom into a cell and then you're zooming to aspects of that cell, eventually all you're going to find is a vibration. You're just going to see a string of vibration, and that's where I think the idea of string theory comes from, because it's a string. It's not a cell, it's not anything. It's a like, maybe you could see it as like a harp or a violin, but there's something that's resonating in the form of a vibration, and perhaps it's just a movement that is eventually only seen and it comes across as a string. It's a vibration. So in the manifestation world, people talk about your vibration, changing your vibration. People talk about doing affirmations, changing your mindset. You've got to believe something in order to make it happen. But the fact of the fucking matter is in your nervous system, you are so locked into enslavement, and you are so disconnected from the potential of your own soul, that you have your worth is so low, and you are believing that you are enslaved. I mean, if you just look at certain religions that live from a caste perspective, people believe that they've been born into poverty because they deserved it, and that's their karma. And if somebody's even wealthy, then that's good karma. What the actual fuck? But anyway, imagine how many people that keeps enslaved in that system and believing that. So that's set in the nervous system. You get these vibrations, these strings set in the vibration of the cell, because you get a cellular memory, and that is what happens with the nervous system. But the nervous system is also set in the brain. We've got different parts of the brain that respond and are scanning and observing the world around them constantly. So as children, we come into this world in our circumstances. We've already got a cellular memory going on there. We've been living in our mother's belly. We come with our dad's sperm too. We've got generational shit, because, the fucking 1% of the DNA that does work is all about keeping these patterns in place, okay? So we've already got a frequency going on inside of us within the nervous system that gets set so much deeper once we start interacting with the world around us, and the world starts interacting with us in a way that we need to start responding. And most people, because I can never say all, because all possibilities exist, but most people, we are set into a nervous system that is the opposite of soul connection. We are taught to disconnect from our authenticity in order to fit in, and we are taught to adapt according to what we see, not because of what we can reason or how we can talk, because we can't talk as children. We can only speak energy. And this gets set even deeper into a nervous system that is already vibrating at a pretty low vibration. I do believe we all have the capacity to change, but this isn't what is happening. So this is why I'm speaking very generally. So basically, what happens is that this nervous system gets set, but as a defense mechanism. So the brain that's constantly scanning for threat has made your past a gauge for what is safe and what is not safe. So it's not safe to feel certain feelings. It's not safe to have certain beliefs. It's not safe to have certain ways of expression. We have to mimic what we see, and we will be made to feel that we're responsible for other people's emotions. So basically, the nervous system has a few ways that it plays out its defenses. I want to say drama, but it's also its defenses. So if you've gone through chronic abuse, you're not going to want to put yourself into that line of fire. And if you are in that line of fire all the time, you're going to have to find survival methods, which means you might always be on your guard and even see stuff that isn't threatening as threat, because that is the only way you've known how to survive as a kid. And again, it's not stuff you could reason because you're a child. You just adapted through feeling, through vibration. And the more stuff you faced and the more you had to adapt, the bigger or the denser or the more strength in the vibration of the nervous system set. So now here is the beauty. The vibration, the cellular memory, can only be changed through the reconnection to our emotions. The emotions that we have avoided, pushed away, and shut down as children because we wanted to fit in. We wanted to be good kids, or we just wanted to fit into our environment. Of course you do. That is all people want. So ultimately, the soul only communicates through emotion. So we have a constant thread and stream of good consciousness actually running through every single one of us, which is so wonderful. It makes you know that nobody is broken and nobody is actually beyond saving. It's just a matter of people who are functioning from such a high level of defense and fear that they can't see anything else. And the fact that the nervous systems are running so powerfully and such high defense just shows you how perfectly we're working. We're just not necessarily running away from lions. We are actually running away from threat, which is not threat. So the only way out is through. And so my theory, my proposal is this, is that we have the capacity to reconnect to our souls completely and entirely. We can change our relationship, which means we have the capacity to reconnect to the 99% of divine consciousness that is sitting within us. I don't think we have figured out how to change the vibration of the nervous system enough to be able to access 99% of the consciousness. But maybe, just maybe, if we're able to reapproach the nervous system so that we can slowly start changing the vibration. So any form of change that we as human beings want happens through identity shifting, but it also happens through safety. The idea that where you're at is less safe than where you want to be. But first and foremost, you have to form a relationship with yourself where you can be safe enough inside yourself to allow yourself to feel and express every emotion that your soul is showing you has been trapped inside you. And in those trapped emotions and the releasing of them through the allowing of them, the seeing of them, the acknowledging of them, you start changing the vibration of the cells of the body. And when you change that vibration enough, what starts happening is you can start accessing the dormant DNA. This is my theory, and maybe I'm completely fucking wrong. I don't know. But human beings are not bad. Human beings are beautiful, and human beings are going to become extinct. It is just very clear and very obvious of what's happening in the world right now. There is this whole movement towards half human, half machine, and merging the human and the machine. But the machine will never be able to duplicate the soul. And the one thing machine can never duplicate are feelings and emotions. The soul can communicate in so many more ways than just emotions, but that is how it communicates with us. There is no emotion that you have which is bad. Every single emotion has a place and a need to be seen. We can't be seen by the external world. We can see ourselves because we know what's going on inside of our own body. We know what we feel. We know what we think. And the only way to be able to bridge that gap between the soul and the nervous system, to rewire and to rewrite the nervous system, is through the emotions, but also through the ability to hear yourself, see yourself. What are you feeling? What are you resisting? What are you pushing away? What do you need to acknowledge? What do you need to see? What do you need to stop fighting inside yourself? And how do you then bridge that gap to reclaim the conscious divine consciousness? And I say reclaim because it's almost like I say, like a switch has been turned off and we can turn that back on again. And I really do see this. I see this so clearly. It's the ability for human beings to step back into their role of, not say role, but their ability to be wonderful, their ability to be equal, their ability to lead themselves and to live really good lives. Everybody wants a real evolution in human consciousness and humanity, and this is the way to it. But each individual has to be willing to take that journey for themselves. So that's my message. That's as much in a nutshell as I could try and explain it, and maybe I will do some more on the subject. But I needed to say that, man. There is a wave that's bringing it all together, and that's pretty fucking exciting. All of a sudden, we are actually going to be reaching the possibility of new depths of consciousness in ourselves, and that is really fucking exciting. I can't say whether or not I'm right, but I can say that the deeper I go into this work within myself, the more I am accessing in myself, whether it be more peaceful or whatever it might be, shifts into more senses of freedom or whatever. There's good stuff. There's really good stuff in this. Okay, that's all.